the government exists by the consent of those that are being governed, not ruled by edict, order, decree, and mandate. But the contrasting philosophy puts the institution of government above the individual. And that ends up being this progressivism, socialism, Marxism, statism, communism.
Alan, you have served our country in so many ways. You've served in the military, you've served in Congress, and with all that you have invested into this country, can you give us a little insight into how much the ability to vote means to you?
Well, it means everything. I mean, when you think about the fact that I've been to so many different nations and combat zones to make sure that they had the ability to do something that seemingly we take for granted. When you look at some of the elections that we have here in America, like school board, for instance, they have less than a 10% turnout. So I remember being in Iraq and seeing the pride of the Iraqis when they showed that little purple finger because they got the opportunity, the chance to do something that they had never been able to do. We should take pride in that, and we should be the gold standard of the electoral process and the representative democracy for others to look to.
Alan, some people just get so tired of all of the mudslinging and all of the fighting that they experience fatigue as we move toward an election like this. It's so important. I mean, everybody's talking about it. How can you encourage people to stay in the fight and not just burn out and say, you know what, I'm going to throw my hands up and let other people take care of this?
Because when you throw your hands up, you're surrendering. And Isaiah 54:17 says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. And when you look at people that are out there just demonizing, denigrating, and demeaning people by name calling, that means that they don't have anything that they can stand upon. They are truly the house that was built on shifting sand. But if you can make the stand, as Thomas Paine wrote in the 1776 pamphlet, The Crisis, these are the times which try men's souls, when the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from their duties. But to those who will make a stand, they will deserve the love and admiration of all men and women. So I think that you have to look at your children, look at your grandchildren, and say, I want to pass on something better for them that was left to me.
Alan, all this is so good. At times it can feel overwhelming for citizens who want to participate and help, but they feel like there's so many things that are being thrown at them. If there was one or two issues that you think people could vote for, what would those issues be?
Well, I would tell you, if you're going to look at this from a biblical perspective, the life issue is very important, because in Judges chapter 2, we saw what happened when the children of Israel stopped worshiping God and fell down and worshiped the Baals. And one of the gods of the Baals was Moloch, the god of child sacrifice. But I think it's so important we look at this aspect of security, look at economic security, look at energy security, look at our border security. We're a sovereign nation. We're a constitutional republic. We have to protect our borders.
Alan, tell me what you think. I remember in past elections, there have been issues that people have disagreed over, but it seems like the division seems to be stronger and more intense now than I remember in the past. Could there be people who are actually profiting from inflaming the division even more in this country? I mean, it seems like there are nefarious forces at work that go beyond just you and me having different opinions on how to fix, immigration or the economy.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that there was a saying, if it bleeds, it leads. There are people out there in the media that want to foment that division. They want to source and sow that discourse and discontent out there instead of looking for the places where we can come together. But right now, Kurt, there are two different philosophies of governance. And again, the United States of America was founded on a premise of individual rights, freedoms, liberties, and individual sovereignty. That's really classical liberalism, today's modern constitutional conservatism. And the individual is elevated over the institution of government. The government exists by the consent of those that are being governed, not ruled by edict, order, decree, and mandate. But the contrasting philosophy puts the institution of government above the individual. And that ends up being this progressivism, socialism, Marxism, statism, communism. And so it's two very different philosophies of governance, and this country needs to make a choice. But sadly, we're not teaching our history. We're not teaching the civics. We're not teaching those fundamentals of a constitutional republic. And so therefore, you get to a point where All of a sudden, back 21 years ago after 9/11, the first place that everyone wanted to go after that catastrophic event was to church. But then fast forward to March of 2020, when we go into this COVID issue, the very first thing that government wants to shut down is the church, not Walmart, not McDonald's, not the strip club, not the liquor store, not even the marijuana store, not even abortion clinics, but they want to shut down the church. So I think that is indicative of this incredible chasm that is developed in this country, which is philosophical in nature and spiritual also.
How do we preserve the right to disagree without allowing that to devolve into division that destroys us?
Well, one of the things that the founders, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, talked about is that a constitutional republic like the United States of America is so dependent upon an educated electorate. And what we have now are people out there that can tell you what Kim Kardashian did last week, but they cannot tell you that 2 weeks ago was the 235th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States of America. And so you're right. You have people out there that don't understand. I have the freedom of speech. I have freedom of expression. That is in the Constitution. That's part of our Bill of Rights. But what is happening is freedom of accepted speech. And that's what we're coming to. And you have not just government, but other private sector entities that are the real fascists out there that are trying to shut down any type of dissenting opinion, thought, perspective, and insight. So I think that we have an education issue here in the United States of America. And how do we, coming back to what you were talking about, how do we, cross that bridge? How do we build a bridge between this incredible chasm? We just got to stand on the truth. We got to stand on what is right, regardless of people yelling, screaming, calling us names. And we have to realize that we have a moral high ground, and we cannot allow people to take that away. I think that there are more people that believe in our Constitution, what is right and what is true, than there are of the others that try to take that away from us.
Alan, you've been through the election process yourself. What was that like?
Having served 22 years in the military was a little bit different, getting out there and running for elected office, because one of the things that the military teaches you is that leaders tell their troops what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And lots of times in the political arena, people are putting out polls and surveys and things of this nature, trying to figure out what they need to say to people in order to get elected. And I think that if we had more elected officials that just told the truth to the people that they're seeking to serve, because I could not tell my troops in combat that when we were going to deploy to Iraq, Afghanistan, or Desert Shield, Desert Storm, that everything was going to be fine. We are going to have nice hot food every day and night, hot showers, and nice cold drinks. You had to tell them the truth. You had to train them hard. And I think that's one of the key things we got to get back to, is not having politicians, but having statesmen and stateswomen.
What are some of the ways that you stay in line with God?
I have my biblical devotional every morning. After I have my morning run, I always ask Lord to bless me with wisdom and discernment. And I always believe that every single day you got to ask the Lord to help you put on the full armor of God, because we are in an ideological or spiritual battlefield. And just the same as when I was on the battlefields, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, you did not go out on the battlefield without your helmet, without your body armor, without your boots, without your weapon. And God breaks that down. Paul rather breaks that down for us in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18. So we're not just fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against some principalities out there, and we've got to be prepared for that. And you've got to do it by going to the Lord every single day in prayer, getting into his word and studying and fortifying yourself.
And finally, Alan, what is your prayer for the United States of America right now?
That we can be restored to what God would have us to be. We can work toward his perfect will, not be trying to skirt and be in his permissive will, that the body of Christ will understand that they're supposed to transform this nation through his mind and for his will, and not conform to the culture. So I just pray that we will have leaders that will stand up and say what needs to be said, and not just leaders that want to tickle people's ears. And that starts in our church.